What's up to everyone watching this week? I'm making another video on the pay-per-view. We got UFC 313, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, co-main. We got the rematch, Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. Been a couple weeks since I made a video, and honestly just haven't felt like sitting down and recording a video. Even though the cards were decent, they weren't too bad, but just didn't feel like making a video for them. But I had to make a video for this week's pay-per-view. Yeah, let's get into it. Oops, I went to YouTube. All right, yeah, let's get started. First fight, we got Ozzy Diaz versus Jordan Santos. Ozzy Diaz, this is like his third fight in the UFC. I don't know, his second. Oh wait, yeah, his second. He just lost to Mingyang Zhang. That was at light heavyweight, right? Wait, these are light heavyweights? Yeah, they are light heavyweights. Got knocked out by Mingyang Zhang, who I'm really high on as a prospect, but he's going against Jordan Santos, who just beat someone on the Contender Series. Will Curry, who was a big favorite, Cage Warriors fighter. Yeah, I was didn't even pick Santos in that fight. I'm gonna be honest, but he ended up winning, surprisingly so. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know too much about these guys. Obviously, this is gonna be a striking battle, stand up fight. And from what I saw from Santos, he's pretty composed in his Contender Series fight. Ozzy Diaz is a fast-paced fighter who I don't want to say is a one-round fighter, but kind of is a one-round fighter. I mean, got finished twice in the first round, and he's got 6 wins in the first round. So I don't want to consider him a one-round fighter, but at the same time, I mean, what can I say? Jordan Santos, on the other hand, pretty decently well-rounded. 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, and he's got 3 by decision. So that shows that he can go the distance. Ozzy Diaz, on the other hand, never been all 3 rounds. So considering I think this will be a striking battle, I think that Santos should be more composed fighter and a little bit more technical fighter. He is gonna be at a 4 inch reach or no 4 inch height disadvantage and a 3.5 inch reach disadvantage. But I'm still gonna pick Santos. He's the younger fighter by 7 years, and think he has more momentum and more a higher ceiling than Ozzy Diaz. So I'm gonna pick Santos by decision, maybe round 1, 2 knockout. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Santos in that fight. Next fight, we got Chris Gutierrez versus John Castaneda, and Gutierrez is stepping in on short notice for this fight at 135. Gutierrez 3 inch height advantage, but he's going to be at a 4 inch reach disadvantage, which is weird because Gutierrez, I think, is a pretty decently long fighter for bantamweight. He uses a lot of kicks. Very flashy fighter, kind of like his teammate Jonathan Martinez. They both use a lot of kicks, calf kicks, teeps. They like to switch it up, but this should be a fight that plays out on the feet. Gutierrez, decent cardio, but his fight IQ is a little off. And he has shown the ability to be controlled, whether on the fence or on the ground. So, and I think that Castaneda is going to have the grappling advantage in this one, while Gutierrez is going to have the striking advantage. And however, I think that Gutierrez what plays more into his favor is his durability compared to Castaneda because Castaneda gets in a lot of dogfights. Daniel Marcos dogfight, Muin Gafurov dogfight, Daniel Santos, Miles Johns, Daniel Wood. A lot of dogfights on the resume of Castaneda. But I mean, Gutierrez has been in some dogfights too. It was a dogfight with Quang Lee, dogfight with Song Yadong, dogfight with Pedro Munoz. A lot of tough fights for both fighters, but how many UFC fights does Gutierrez has? He has 13 to Castaneda's probably like 10. Oh, man, 7. So experience will play in favor of Gutierrez. I'm gonna pick Gutierrez here. He's stepping on short notice, which is a little bit risky to pick a fighter stepping on short notice, but I'm still gonna pick Gutierrez considering he has the better training partners that affect Muay Thai. Taller fighter, and his calf kicks they're deadly. He's probably got to hit you with maybe like 3 or 4 good ones, and you're compromised. So it's really just to how durable Castaneda is going to be in this fight. If he's going to be a durable, bite down his mouthpiece, walk Gutierrez down, then Gutierrez could have some trouble in this fight because Gutierrez does not deal with pressure well from what I've seen in his previous fights. So, but I'm still going to pick Gutierrez. I think he should be this cleaner fighter, sharper fighter, technical fighter, and be the fighter, be able to fight on the outside. So I'm gonna pick Gutierrez here by decision. I don't really see any fighter getting a finish here. So I'll pick Gutierrez by decision. Next fight, we got Myron Santos versus Francis Marshall. And Santos is coming off that Ultimate Fighter win, I believe. Yep, over Con Offley. And he's making his real UFC debut against Francis Marshall, who's also, oh no, he was on the Contender Series, right? Yeah, he was on Contender Series. And Marshall was undefeated before he lost to William Gomez, and then he got beat down by Isaac Dalgarian. But he's coming off a win against Dennis Bushka, which is, I mean, decent. It was a close fight, but some people would have gave it to Bushka, but Marshall did win. However, I feel like he's gonna be very outmatched in this fight with Santos. Santos is probably gonna have, yeah, they're same height and reach, but I feel like Santos is just gonna be way cleaner striker, better grappler for sure, and more durable fighter. I mean, Francis Marshall, he's always in a war with he had a war with Gomez, a war with Bulgarian, and a hard tough fight with Bushka. So Bajukia, how do you say his name? Bajukia, yeah, Bajukia. So, but I got to pick Santos here by whatever way he wants, really. If he can go to I mean, he doesn't really, he has a decent amount of submissions, I think. Maybe like, oh no, submissions actually, just straight knockouts, but knockouts and decisions. But I think that Santos should be able to get his work done really wherever he wants. We didn't get to see, I mean, he had decent striking. He had really good striking actually in his fight against Colin Offley, but I think that he's going to be just a way cleaner fighter compared to Francis Marshall. And Francis Marshall, he's just taking too much damage. So I don't want to say too much, but he takes a decent amount of damage. He's not the most cleanest technical fighter with head movement, and he gets hit a lot. So I think that Santos will be just too clean and too sharp, and he should be able to find a finish in this fight, maybe by like round 2, 3 knockout. So definitely picking Santos here. In the next fight, I'm gonna pick Alex Morono. I'm not picking Alex Morono, but we got Alex Morono versus Carlos Leal. Leal, previous PFL fighter. He had his first UFC fight against who was that? Who's the Russian guy? The Gladiator. What's his name? Renat Fakhretdinov. He had his first UFC fight against Renat Fakhretdinov, which most people I wasn't able to watch this fight live when it happened. I think this was on the Topuria Holloway card in Abu Dhabi. I was not able to watch this fight live. I did go back and watch it. But while this fight was going on, I know that a lot of people gave it to Leal. Like they were saying it was a blind day robbery. And as I look back at that fight, I think that you could consider it a robbery, but Fakrdinov won. And I think that but however, Liao, he's been in a lot of tough fights. I mean, Sadibou fought him twice, lost to him twice in the PFL. Ray Cooper. In this, let me just look at the stats here. 5'11", 5'11", so same height and reach. Morono, he's probably got like what, 15 UFC fights? More than that, almost. He's got, what's that? I don't know, yeah, he's got over 20 UFC fights. Got 22 UFC fights. However, there's no way I can pick Morono in this fight because Morono, every fight he's in a dog fight. Dog fight with Ponzinibbio, Tim Means, Buckley, Court McGee, Price, D-Rod. I mean, you got to be able to finish Mickey Gall, dude. I mean, come on now. Somehow he TKO'd Donald Cerrone. I remember that fight too. What car was that on? Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson. That was feels like forever ago. And yeah, there's no way I can pick Morono in this fight. Morono does have some slick grappling. He usually, I mean, as we know, all fights start out on the feet, but Morono he's got a decent amount of submissions and good guillotine and good ground control. But however, there's no way I can pick him in this fight. I think Liao's too powerful. Pressure's too much. It's gonna be too much for Morono. This should be a fight that plays out on the feet. And the thing with Morono is that I've seen him slow down. I mean, he's had a lot of UFC fights, so eventually it's gonna wear on you. And I mean, Liao has a bunch of fights as well, but not in the UFC, but a bunch of MMA fights. So they both have some wear and tear. But I think that younger fighter Liao, there's a reason that Liao was signed to the UFC after not having the best I mean, decent resume, but not having the most like the really good wins. I mean, you can't really pick out some extremely good wins here on Liao's resume, but he is a fun fighter to watch. Always brings the fight. I think that he's just going to be too much for Morono in this fight. So I'm going to pick Liao here by knockout or decision. I think that Liao should be able to find the knockout because Morono does tend to slow down, as I said previously, in a lot of his fights. Like second, third round, he slows down because he's a very bouncy fighter, like on his tiptoes, bouncing around. And I think that Liao will be able to walk him down and find the right shot. So give me Liao here by knockout rounds, really any round. I could see Liao coming out hot and starching Morono pretty fast, or if the fight plays into the second, third round, I could see Morono slowing down, Liao finding a shot and knocking Morono out. So I'm gonna pick Liao here by knockout decision. Next fight, we got Bruno Ferreira versus Armen Petrosyan, and a lot of people are going to be picking Pereira on this fight, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, I can kind of get it. Petrosian coming off that somewhat concussive, that was a pretty concussive loss against Cheryl Bullet. But I feel like Petrosian is just a way cleaner striker. This is going to definitely be a fight that plays out on the feet. This is a really good card. If you want to show your friend his first UFC fight, first UFC event is going to be this one because this is going to be a great event. And yeah, this is. I think I gotta pick Petrosian here. I get two fight scared, but I feel like Ferreira just never shown me too much. I mean, he did flatline Phil Hawes and did really mess up Stoltzfus, but I mean, as you've seen, like he's had some trouble in his UFC fights. I feel like he's a small middleweight. This is at middleweight. He's a small middleweight. This dude could be fighting at 180. I mean, he is shredded. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like for his height, he should be at 170. And yeah, I gotta pick Petrosian in this fight. I think he's just a way cleaner striker. Petrosian, good cardio. As we know, Ferreira's huge and not the best cardio. I mean, he does have decent cardio, but he throws a lot of power shots and not the most technical shots. He does, but when he connects, he does cause damage. And I would say that his his strikes are more damaging than Petrosian, but Petrosian is just a more cleaner fighter. And I mean, I feel like Petrosian's been way in the UFC way longer, but he might not have the same, might not have that much more UFC fights. Yeah, six UFC fights, and he's been in the UFC since 2022. Compared to Ferreira, I mean, Ferreira was probably in the UFC 2023. Okay, so just a year later, but I mean, I feel like Petrosian should have way more fights than he has. Um, yeah, I gotta pick Petrosian here. I don't really. I mean, if anyone does get knocked out, it's probably gonna be Petrosian getting knocked out by Ferreira. But I think that Petrosian is just too clean, and I'm gonna pick him in this fight. So I'll pick Petrosian here by decision. Next fight, we got Ray Saruya versus Joshua Van Saruya. I think this is his second UFC fight. Yeah, second UFC fight. He's coming off that win against Carlos Hernandez last summer. And Joshua Van's already got like what, 4 or 5 fights in the UFC, 6 fights in the UFC. He's coming off, he's two fight win streak. Great fight against Edgar Chairez and good fight against Durden. He put it that, I mean, if you like striking, like watching slick boxing, you got to watch Joshua Van because he's nice and he's still a good prospect. Even though with that one loss to Charles Johnson, I think that he's still a good prospect for flyweights. But so is Ray Saruya. Saruya is a great grappler, and I mean, he's decent stand up himself. I mean, he's got what, 4 knockouts? Yeah, so decent striking himself that Ray Saruya has. But I think that the way that he's going to win this fight is by grappling. Obviously, Van's going to want to keep it on the feet, keep his distance, mixing his combinations. And Cerruti is going to want to use his striking to get into takedowns and grapple and control Van because, and also Van has tended to slow down in this fight with his high output. He has slowed down, and I'm going to pick Cerruti here. I think his grappling will be too much. He'll be able to control Van, whether it's on the fence, wear on him, and maybe he can get some takedowns and control time on the ground. I mean, usually the a lot of fighters from Asia, they don't have the best competition, I would say. But I mean, Saruya's level of competition is not that bad. He beat a 7-0 fighter on road to UFC, a 9-1 fighter, 13-2 fighter on road to UFC again. So decent level of competition. Compared to Van, Van's definitely had the better competition, especially he's been fighting in the UFC. But I'm gonna pick Saruya here. I think Saruya is a really good prospect for flyweights, kind of like Tatsuro Taira. And yeah, I'm gonna pick Saruya here by decision. But I would not be surprised if I mean, Van, this is gonna be a very entertaining fight, and Van gonna be more experienced. But I think that Saruya is a good fighter. He's gonna have a 1 inch height advantage and 3 inch reach advantage. So actually, Van's gonna be have to be the person making his way in to get his strikes off. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Saruya here by decision. But Saruya has shown that he can get the knockout too and go all 3 rounds if he needs to. I mean, get the submission if he needs to. So I want to pick Saruya there. Next fight, we got Curtis Blades versus Rizvan Kuniev. And Blades coming off a knockout loss, right? Yeah, Tom Aspinall for the interim belt. And Kuniev's coming off his knockout win in the Contender Series. And that fight kind of worried me because it feels like Kuniev, I'm gonna say Kuniev. Kuniev started out kind of slow in that fight, but he did starch that guy once he got his hands on him. I'm gonna pick Kuniev in this fight. Same height, 4 inch reach disadvantage for Kuniev. However, I mean, obviously Curtis Blades is gonna be the more experienced UFC fighter, but Kuniev has some decent experience. I mean, he fought Renan Ferreira in the PFL, and that's really it. He fought Darko Stosic, who's a pretty experienced fighter. Previously fought in the UFC. But other than that, there's not too many good wins on the resume of Kuniev. However, you would think that Kuniev, you hear these Russians with the Eves at the end of their name, you're gonna think that they're grapplers. And Kuniev can grapple, but he's got some good striking and some really good power because I think the dude used to be on some type of steroids. So I'm gonna pick Kuniev in this fight. As long as this is gonna be a fight, obviously that starts out on the feet. Kuniev will be the one trying to use his striking against Curtis Blades trying to use his grappling. Obviously, we know Curtis Blades is a great wrestler, but it's just going to be whether or not he can get Kuniev down without getting caught first. Kind of like Francis Ngannou fight and the Derek Lewis fight. I mean, it's really and the Pavlovich fight. It's really just whether every fight that Curtis Blades fights and he loses, it's because he gets caught trying to do his bread and butter, which is the takedowns and the wrestling. And I feel like that's what's gonna happen in this fight again. But however, Curtis Blades is a very experienced fighter, and his striking has evolved over the past couple of years. I would say after that Derek Lewis fight, he learned that he can't just use his wrestling and his grappling to win fights. He's gotta improve on his striking, and he beat a good kickboxer in Biggie Boy, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Then he knocked out Chris Daukaus, who's not in the UFC anymore. Did beat Espinal with that weird knee injury, so we're not counting that as a knockout loss. But and then he knocked out Jailton Almeida, who was on a pretty good run until he ran into Curtis Blades. And I did pick Almeida in that fight because I thought that he would be the better fighter, and he wasn't. And Curtis Blades showed immense experience, improvement in striking, improvement in cardio because he was patient. Almeida was pressing the grappling in that fight, and Blades was able to hold him off, be patient, and find his shot. So, but I'm still going to pick Cunha in this fight. Curtis Blades is going to be looking for the takedown relentlessly, and I feel like once he feels Cunha's power, he's not going to want to stand up anymore. He's going to be forcing takedowns, and Cunha is going to find a knockout. And Cunha, like I said, he can grapple himself. He's a good grappler, but we don't really see that much because he's a fighter that likes to throw his hands. So I'm going to pick Cunha in this fight. Decent underdog, almost plus 300. I'm picking Cunha in this fight. That's gonna be a good fight though. I'm gonna pick Cunha by knockout because I don't really see whoever wins this fight. I don't think it goes to decision. There's no way it goes all 3 rounds. Either Kuniev catches Curtis Blades on the way in, knocks him out, or puts the pressure on Curtis Blades, doesn't slow down, and knocks him out, or Curtis Blades finds the takedown. Kuniev slows down, gasses, and as we know, Curtis Blades has great ground and pound, great elbows, slicing, and that's the way that Blades can win. But I feel like Curtis Blades is just too big of a favorite here. There's no way he should be almost a minus 350 after getting knocked out the way he just did, and against a powerful guy like Kuniev. So I'm gonna pick Kuniev here by knockout. Next fight, we got Bobby King Green versus Mauricio Hofi. And Hofi's coming off that weird win against Yam Top, which was, I mean, it wasn't a bad performance, but it also wasn't what I think most fans or most UFC watchers were expecting. I mean, we know Hofi as a very powerful striker, dynamic striker, flashy, kicks, elbows. I mean, fighting nerds, we all know their striking is really good. The John Silvas, the Protezes, their striking is another level. They mix in their strikes well, their kicks, their knees, and that's the thing. Like when they kick, they'll kick your legs, kick your body, knee your face. I mean, they're very diverse with their strikes. And Bobby Green coming off that submission loss where he got put to sleep against Paddy Pimblett. There's no way I'm picking Bobby in this fight, and I absolutely love Bobby Green. One of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC, one of the OGs, and always goes out on his shield. He's an OG, and I always got to show respect to Bobby. I'm a pretty big Bobby Green fan, actually. I don't want to say I'm the biggest Bobby Green fan, but I always love watching Bobby Green fight. I've liked him for probably like a good 7, 8 years. So always puts on entertaining fights. In this matchup, he's going to be at a 1 inch height disadvantage and a 4 inch reach disadvantage. This is obviously going to be a fight that plays out on the feet. There's no way that anyone's shooting for takedowns in this fight. There's absolutely no way. And 10 years younger, Rufi is going to be the more powerful striker, the more durable fighter. The only thing that plays in the favor here for Bobby Green is his experience. I mean, the dude's got, what's that, 48 fights in the year, 40, 49 fights. Probably like, yeah, he's got close, what's that, 26 UFC fights, which is absolutely insane if you ask me. I mean, More, some people don't even get 5 fights in the UFC and they're cut. 10 fights in the UFC. This dude has 26, which is insane. But yeah, there's no way I can pick Bobby Green in this fight. Shout out to Bobby Green. Much love for Bobby Green, but hopefully it's going to be too much for him. If there's going to be another weird fight where only thing that Rufi actually scares me about Rufi, Mauricio Rufi, is his cardio. His cardio, man. What these strikes that he throws, they take, I feel like they zap his energy, especially when he doesn't land. I mean, this dude, how many times has he been in decision? Maybe like two, if even that. One. Yeah, he's been in decision. The first time he went to decision was his last UFC fight against James Deon Top, who's not in the UFC anymore. I'm definitely picking Rufi here, but cardio scares me. I'm not telling you to go against Rufi because don't, but cardio is definitely something that Rufi needs to get better at as he continues on his UFC career. Yeah, I'm picking Hoofy here by knockout. I could see it maybe going to a decision if Bobby Green is durable enough and doesn't get caught by too many clean shots. But I think that Hoofy will be able to find his name, his one shot. So give me Hoofy here. This is gonna be a great fight. Great fight. I'm gonna pick Hoofy here by rounds 1 or 2 knockout. Yeah, give me Hoofy here. Next fight, we got Amanda Lemos versus Yasmin Lucindo. And Lemos coming off that loss to Virna Jandiroba, yep, where she got armbarred. And I did pick Lemos in that fight. Lucindo's coming off that loss to Marina Rodriguez, which was a close fight. And I actually gave it to Rodriguez. But I could see how Lucindo won. Lucindo is very young, 23 years old, a year older than me, which is crazy to think. And she's got some decent wins. Beat Poliana Viana, beat the experienced Kelly Kovacevic, and the experienced Marina Rodriguez. I feel like her only loss in the UFC is to Yasmin Hori, which I wouldn't say is a bad loss, but we've seen her get knocked out a few times. So this is a really hard fight to pick. The younger fighter, I mean, let's look at the stats first. So 1 inch height advantage for Lemos, 1 inch reach disadvantage for Lemos. Lemos should be the more experienced UFC fighter, considering she's been in the UFC longer, 12 UFC fights compared to Lucindo's maybe seven, her fifth. This will be her sixth. I gotta pick Lemos here. Lucindo is a very walk you down fighter, stay in your face, put the pressure on you, try to make you break. And Lemos is definitely the more cleaner, stay on the outside, hit you with the clean shots, circle around you, hit you with a couple body shots, but a couple body kicks, and just try to, I don't want to say skate out a win, but because if Lemos hits you clean, like if we seen she knocked out Marina Rodriguez and caught Mackenzie Dern a bunch of times. And yeah, Lemos is a really sharp striker. Oh, see, this is a hard fight to pick. Because Lemos was getting old, 37. I get that woman, or it's different for women's fighter. Women can fight as they're older, but kind of like the heavyweights. But ooh, I want to pick Lemos here, but this is obviously gonna be a fight that plays out on the feet. But as we've seen in the past, I think that problems with Lemos, a little bit of her cardio, a little bit cardio problems, and a little bit of grappling problem. She has shown the ability to get taken down and controlled on the fence. So, but Lucino's not really much of a grappler herself. She can grapple, but obviously Lucino will get most of her work done on the feet. Oh, this is a hard fight to pick. Ooh, ah, I'm gonna pick Lamos here. I think that she's just gonna be too clean of a striker, and yeah, she's gonna be just too clean for Lucindo. And yeah, she should. I don't really see any fighter getting a finish here, but I think that Lemos will be able to just be able to be able to be the cleaner striker for 3 rounds, and she should be able to win by decision. So give me Lemos by decision there. Next fight, we got Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes, and Bahamondes is coming off that great performance knockout win against Manuel Torres at Noche UFC, and Turner's coming off that loss to Nathan Moicano, which feels like it was 2 years ago, but really only 10 months ago. Even stats here. We got 6'3" versus 6'3", 75.5 inch reach for both fighters. UFC experience should go to Jalen Turner. Let me look. 12 UFC fights for Turner compared to Bahamondes, his seventh or seventh. 7 fights. This will be his eighth. I'm gonna pick Bahamondes here. Jalen Turner is a clean fighter, decent grappling, good grappling, but I think Bahamondes is just getting more. The more that Bahamondes fights, he elevates. He evolution. He what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know. But the more that Bahamondes fights, he gets better every fight. To where Turner cardio problems, it's getting hard for him to make 155. I mean, I don't even know how he does it right now, but we've seen him have some trouble on the scales and definitely have some cardio problems and also some IQ issues in the UFC. So I'm gonna pick Bahamondes here. This is gonna be a fight that should play out on the feet. If anyone's trying to grapple and utilize their grappling, it's probably Turner. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Bahamondes here. I think he's just gonna be the cleaner striker for 3 rounds, the more conditioned fighter, durable fighter, smarter fighter. Regardless of who wins, this is gonna be a really, really good fight. Striker's delight, if you ask me. No one should be really shooting for takedowns. And yeah, I'm gonna pick Bahamondes here by decision. Maybe he'll find a knockout if Turner slows down, like he did in his last fight and in previous fights. I mean, we've seen like he was had a good fight against Gamrot. I was in person for that. That was UFC 285. And we watched him against Dan Hooker. He was looking great, and then he just slows down and kind of gives his lets his opponents back into the fight, which can't do that against Bahamondes, who's too good of a striker. 2 season. I'm gonna pick Bahamondes here by decision, maybe like a round 2, 3 knockout. Next fight, we got Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev coming off that was it what was his last fight? Was it the knee injury? Yeah, the knee injury against Gamrot. And as we know, Gaethje's coming off that nasty highlight knockout by Max Holloway. This is a rematch. Gaethje had a great performance in their first fight. Great performance. And I did pick Fiziev in their first fight. And I was surprised when Gaethje outclassed Fiziev the way he did in their first fight. However, I don't think he'll be the same in this fight. In this fight, we got Fiziev at a 3 inch reach dis or a 3 inch height disadvantage, excuse me, with a 1.5 inch reach advantage. I think that Fiziev coming off I mean, it's hard to pick Fiziev coming off a knee injury, and he hasn't fought in basically a year and a half. It's hard to pick Fiziev, but I'm going to pick Fiziev here. Obviously, this will be a fight that plays out on the feet. No one should be going for takedowns here. We did see Justin Gaethje go for a takedown. And what fight was that? Like it was against a Fiziev, actually, that he went for a takedown. And I think that, I mean, I mean, it's hard to pick Fiziev coming off his knee injury and have not having fought in a year and a half. And it's hard to pick Gaethje after that really nasty knockout that he had. Don't really know how Gaethje's going to look in this fight. Is he going to be timid? I mean, I don't want to say we know Gaethje comes for war every time, but I mean, is there going to be in the back of his mind a little bit of timidity? Like, is he going to be? I don't know how Gaethje's going to look here, and I think that for Zeev stepping in, this is a short notice fight too. I forgot about that. So, and we have seen Fiziev slow down and a little bit of cardio issues in his fights. Um, yeah, a little bit of cardio issues for Fiziev. But I'm gonna pick Fiziev here. I think Fiziev is gonna be more hungrier fighter, and the more durable fighter. Even though he is coming off an injury, but every fight Gaethje is in, it's a war. It's a war. I mean, you can't go through one of these fights. Holloway, Poirier, Fiziev, Oliveira, Chandler, Khabib, Ferguson, Donald Cerrone, Poirier, Eddie Alvarez, Michael Johnson. Wars, war. This guy goes to war every single fight, and Fiziev is the cleaner striker. I'm not going to say he's a better striker, but the cleaner striker. He likes to get his strikes off, circle around, circle around. And what Fiziev is really good at is setting traps. We saw that in his fight against Brad Riddell and not the Moicano. he set a lot of traps up and got fighters kind of playing into his game, circling where he wanted them to, and caught him with the right shot. And I think that just with Gaethje's durability being at question here, I got to pick Fiziev, and everyone's gonna be picking Gaethje here. Yeah, almost 70%. But I'm gonna be picking Fiziev here, and I think that he's able to find a knockout here. I think that maybe he watched that Holloway fight and learned from his own mistakes that he fought in the first fight, and he sees how he can fight Justin Gaethje now. So I think that Fiziev will come out with a different game plan and just be the hungrier fighter, more durable fighter. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Fiziev here by knockout, rounds two, three, maybe a decision if it goes all three rounds. But this is gonna be a war, striker's delight, and I'm picking Fiziev here. Main event, we got Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I do love watching Pereira fight. I mean, if you like to watch striking, who doesn't like watching Pereira fight? However, I'm not the biggest fan of Alex Pereira, but making these videos, I do not like to be biased. And I'll tell you when I like a fighter a lot, and maybe there's a reason I'm picking them is because I like them so much, but I don't like to be biased when I'm making tapology picks or making breakdown videos. I don't like to be biased. I like to break down the fight as I see it and really pick who I think is gonna win. Um, and it's hard to go against Alex Pereira here. I'm gonna be honest, and I haven't been that good at picking Pereira fights. I picked I would say I have been decent picking Pereira fights. I picked him in his debut. I picked him against Bruno Silva. I picked him against Sean Strickland, which I think most people did not pick Pereira in this fight. Yeah, it was 50-50. So, but I feel like the majority of people were picking Strickland just because of the grappling advantage that they thought Strickland would have. And I picked Pereira in that fight, and I was perfect picking Pereira fights for his first three. I picked Adesanya for the first fight in the UFC. Didn't go my way. Pereira won. In the next fight with Izzy, huge Izzy fan here, I picked Pereira to win, and then he loses. I picked Blachowicz in his fight against Pereira. Pereira won. No, did I say I picked Blachowicz? I meant to say I picked Pereira. I picked Pereira in his fight against Blachowicz. I think I picked Yuri in their first. Oh no, I picked Pereira in their first fight against Yuri. Jamal Hill, I picked Pereira. Second Yuri fight, I picked Yuri. And then Khalil, I was kind of more that fight. I was a little bit more biased, being from Las Vegas and Roundtree from Las Vegas and Roundtree's story and things like that. I was a little bit biased for that fight, but honestly, I kind of thought that Roundtree would win that fight, and I did. I mean, he almost, obviously, almost maybes and ifs don't count in MMA. They're only the definites that count. But Khalil I mean, compared to Yuri, Jamal Hill. Yuri in the first fight, Roundtree showed that he had a better chance than all of them at beating Pereira. So, but the thing is though, when you look through all of these fights, Roundtree, Prochazka, Jamal Hill, Prochazka, everyone besides Izzy and Blachowicz did not try to take Pereira down. They didn't take Pereira down, even attempt to. Yuri didn't attempt to. Jamal Hill didn't attempt to. Khalil Roundtree didn't attempt to. Strickland didn't attempt to. Bruno Silva did, but he couldn't get him down. Andreas Michailidis, I think he tried, but couldn't get him down. Only smart people to recognize somewhat of a weakness. Pereira's definitely gotten better with his takedown defense and his grappling. I'm not doubting that. But is he at the level of most UFC fighters grappling who have been, you know, f practicing MMA their whole life, fighting MMA their whole life? No. And people who have the IQ to try to utilize his grappling as a deficiency, Blachowicz and Adesanya, they had success. Even though Blachowicz didn't win that fight, it was somewhat of a close fight. I did give it to Pereira, but we did see Alex get control in that fight, and the question is, in this fight, is what Ankalaev going to do? Is he going to be like Pereira's previous opponents? Is he going to be the Khalil Rountree? Is he going to be the Yuri Prochazkas, the Jamal Hills, the Sean Stricklands? Is he not going to try to even attempt to take Pereira down? And that's the thing. This is MMA. People think that they're going to come in MMA into an MMA fight and play it as a kickboxing in a as a striking battle against one of the best strikers to ever live. Really, I'm not even trying to toot Pereira's horn, but it's like this guy, his IQ on the feet, striking, it's something different. The traps he sets, the power in his shots, the the diversity in his strikes, great knees, great kicks, great punches. This dude, I mean, you're not gonna really go into an MMA fight and try to beat Pereira kickboxing. That's not gonna really happen. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not the biggest fan of this guy, but I'm gonna be honest. You're not gonna really do that. Only person to do that was Izzy, and that's probably because Izzy had so much experience, past experiences fighting this guy, and had some good, really good reads on Pereira. However, all the people who didn't have previous reads and previous fights with Pereira, they lost. And they lost in pretty brutal fashion, if you ask me. Pereira flatlined Prochazka twice, beat the crap out of Roundtree, beat the crap out of also the dude Jamal Hill. I mean, it's gonna be very if Ankalaev thinks he's gonna come in here and just totally outstrike Pereira as Ankalaev has some of his former opponents, it's not gonna happen. And I'll be surprised if that happens. But all right, let's look at the stats. 1 inch height advantage for Pereira, 5 inch reach disadvantage that Ankalaev is going to be at. And we don't really see Ankalaev at a reach disadvantage ever. But the thing with Ankalaev is that he's also a good striker himself, a really good striker. Now, I'm going to say I'm more of an Ankalaev fan than a Pereira fan. But as a fan, I love to watch both of them fight because they love to strike. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I actually like the grab. I like watching jujitsu and grappling kind of more than striking, if you ask me, because I'm what got me into MMA was jujitsu. But who doesn't love to see people throw down? Like really. And Ankalaev obviously was in the UFC way before Pereira, and that's why I became a fan of Ankalaev because I just watched him starch guys. I watched him starch Marcin Pacquiao, watch him starch Dalcha Lugambula, watch him starch Kutalaba, watch him starch Anthony Smith, watch him starch Johnny Walker. And I think that he should have won the title against Blachowicz. I get that he got the crap beat out of his legs with the leg kicks, but I think that Blachowicz kind of gave up on himself in that fight, and that Ankalaev should have won the belt. I gave rounds 1 and 2 in that fight to Blachowicz, and I gave the last three to Ankalaev, and I think that Ankalaev won that fight. And decent win over Rakic. I don't want to say that was the Ankalaev's best performance, but enough to get him another title shot, that's for sure. And his only loss in the UFC is to Paul Craig. If it was not for this loss, Ankalaev would be undefeated. And Ankalaev was beating the crap out of Paul Craig that whole fight, literally the whole fight. He was in um he was in full guard with under a minute left and got submitted by Paul Craig. As we know, Paul Craig's jiu-jitsu is off the charts, but obviously better than Pereira's. And yeah, I feel like Ankalaev, yeah, obviously Ankalaev, he literally tapped out with 1 minute left. I mean, 1 second left, excuse me. What he tapped out with 1 second left. And yeah, he would be undefeated if it wasn't for that fight. I remember watching that fight and I was actually kind of upset. But it is what it is. This gonna be a fight that plays out on the feet. I mean, Ankalaev already said that he's not gonna try to even really initiate the grappling with Pereira. And I'm gonna pick Ankalaev here. I'm gonna pick Ankalaev. Let me tell you why. If he actually is smart, he doesn't have to shoot for a takedown right away. He can test the waters. He can strike a little bit with Pereira because Ankalaev does have good cardio. I've never really seen Ankalaev slow down compared to Pereira. I've seen Pereira slow down in his fights, and Pereira's getting older. This dude's 37, dude. Maybe another good. 2, 3 years, 4 years max fighting MMA for Pereira. And Ankalaev has way more, I feel like a higher ceiling than Pereira. I'm not gonna say he's gonna be double champ like Pereira or two division champion like Pereira, but he has more years fighting in the UFC. And Pereira, we never seen Ankalaev get put out cold the way Pereira has. Never seen it. And we've seen Adesanya knock him out cold, and that was a bad knockout. And we saw Khalil Roundtree, a little flash knockdown in his last fight. So we have seen Pereira be a little bit chinny. But ooh, this is a hard fight to pick. I already said I'm picking Ankalaev. I'm going to pick Ankalaev. I don't know. Maybe Ankalaev can knock out Pereira. If he does, man, that'd be crazy. And I think that he can. Ankalaev has really good striking, even though people are like, "Oh yeah, Magomed, he wrestles when he needs to." But I mean, we don't really see Ankalaev really shoot for takedowns like that. We really don't see him wrestle. I mean, we know he has a wrestling ability, especially coming out of Dagestan, but we've really just seen Ankalaev strike. And I mean, I can talk for myself personally. I've seen Ankalaev strike, and he has really good striking. I would say in the light heavyweight division, he has the second best striking behind Pereira. And I think that this is MMA. Magomed Ankalaev, he's able to mix in all of his martial arts. He can beat Pereira. He can find a knockout. He can knock out Pereira. I don't doubt that. He can out-grapple Pereira. But the question is, if Pereira can find that one shot that he tends to find in his lot of, I mean, like I said, the traps that he sets, the diversity in his strikes, and his fight IQ, yeah. I mean, he's got the reach advantage. However, Ankalaev definitely has the more the MMA experience. So this fight is really a toss-up, as you see. I mean, minus 120 plus 100, basically a coin flip. But I'm gonna pick Pereira. I mean, not Pereira, excuse me. I'm gonna pick Ankalaev in this fight. I think that if Ankalaev wins this fight, which I think he does, there will definitely be a rematch, and I think that Pereira will win the second fight. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Ankalaev here. I don't really know how Ankalaev's gonna win. I don't really see. Maybe Ankalaev could get a submission, but we don't really see Ankalaev submit people. That's the thing. He's got no submissions on his record. We just seen when we see Ankalaev wrestle and grapple, it's just for control. We see him control fighters on the ground, but and get some good ground and pound. We don't see any submission threats from Ankalaev. So if I'm picking Ankalaev here, I gotta pick him by knockout or decision. And if I'm gonna predict the knockout round, it will be rounds 3 or 4. Maybe if Pereira starts to slow down and Ankalaev, because Ankalaev, he's a very in and out fighter. He knocked out Kutalaba, slipped off, caught him with the left, right and the left. And yeah, I think if Ankalaev can get past Pereira's range, he could find a knockout. It's whether or not Ankalaev wants to really step into the range of Pereira and make it a dogfight. Because when you're with fighting against Pereira, you got to make it a dogfight. You can't be too clean. And if you're too clean, try to be too clean, you're gonna end up making a mistake and get caught. So Uncle Lad's got to make this a dogfight, man. He's got to give us 100%. He's 1,000%. So I'm gonna pick Magomed Ankalaev here by knockout or decision. Overall, it's gonna be a great card. I'm very excited to watch this whole card, and I hope all of you enjoy watching this card too. And I should see you guys next week for the next breakdown video.